I'm Dan Mohr. I'm with a project in Vancouver called the Fifth Space. Who's been to Vancouver or that place? Yeah, you. Yeah, that's just a summer backyard. The winters look a bit different. Just quickly, I want to talk to you about the disability system there and what Design for Wellbeing here, so under Jack's big banner. So really, like well-being, I know there are the definitions around it, but for us, as a project, this is what it comes down to. That's the end. If I want to show you one slide, it's really the idea of a trampoline. And if you think about a lot of people, not just with disabilities, but how many people do you see bounce up again when things go tough? Yes, but first, that's well-being. So I'm with organizations that we call it invisible disabilities. So there's a lot of design features. There's Google and Facebook doing all amazing stuff. Lots of tech companies doing things for physical disabilities, wheelchairs, computers. Our challenge is around invisible disabilities like cognitive, learning disabilities, those sorts of things. And so the question is, what happens there? What do you do? We come from, and I taught a bit here, the Society of Australia, but we also had institutions. The last one sort of closed in the 1990s, and really that's what it used to look like hospitals. That's what life would look like for you on a daily basis. But very much a safety net. You would get straps onto those railings so you wouldn't move too much and could hurt yourself. So what we have tried to go over the last 20 years or so, that's a big shift, to those flourishing work and life for disability workers and people with disabilities. What happened is that often people would go into group homes, so you would live in the community, it would just look like any other house. But the big question is, there wasn't really that shift in mindset necessarily. And just because you move from one place to another doesn't mean you become a different person. And so that's our big challenge at the moment. We are 4 organizations, one very small one, InWithForward. That's me and a few designers, social scientist types, and then 3 large, they call it community living organizations. And really the big idea is to bring design to the front line. There's a lot of talk like frontline support workers, so they are the ones who are doing the shifts for you. Those are the ones who basically work days in day programs or group homes. So people like Ben. And he's a really nice guy. I just want to give you a quick story about him, because he's a behavior consultant. What he basically does is, whenever things get tough in a group home, and you think about people have really extreme behaviors and assault other people because they get so frustrated, then he comes in. And he's a really passionate guy. He loves roots music and all that things. But what he does and what this sort of system gives him is basically lots of paperwork. And he started doing a bit that looks like design research, where he looked at things, how he could change features in a group home. So, in a group home, it's a bit like, it's a funny place, because you have, everything is basically either bolted onto the walls or caged off. So you're in your own home, but imagine you live in that kind of place. And then he comes in and he's supposed to basically write recommendations and write reports about what the care worker should be doing. So he's someone who should know it all, but and he admits this as well, he doesn't really know it all. And so the question is, what's for us, and that comes from a design perspective, is, what if that kind of role model that someone like Ben has had, what if that gets changed around? What if you could, in the fifth space, change how someone like Ben very much at the front line works? And there's the first thing around, sensing, not really knowing. It's you never really know whether you create any change. It's almost like you sort of sense it a bit, but only if you look back you can see, oh yeah, this worked or this interaction worked. But you never really, it's not like a best practice thing. And in combination with being a bit playful and making things and seeing what the reaction is to that, that's the big shift that we're trying to do here. Over the last 20, 30 years, I think there have been great advances made generally. They haven't necessarily came to our services, so don't want to talk about design thinking, but idea of really opening it up, and what used to be a bit like a black box, you didn't know how a designer creates a wheelchair or creates a service, that has been really opened up and it's out there. The other thing is around source data, so you don't look at like averages and sort of for the statistical offices pump out, but you actually look at people's story, and Jack's mentioned a bit like you actually look at what people say versus what they do, and that's where you start having ideas for designs. And then really what really got us going is sort of the behavioral change theories in the last 10, 15 years. There's actually now, if you look at things, that's from the UCL in the UK, sort of around playing around with the kind of behaviors that you'd like to help people with and what kind of interactions you want to have. So the behaviors sit all around the green things, so capability, opportunity, motivation, and then you have different things like training or education, restrictions. That's where the designer then comes in, and that really blew us off, because then we have something at first small versions of a service where at least maybe they didn't work fully yet, but at least we know people are attracted to them. So if you take the example here, that's around matching people together. So at least, this guy Todd there, he's interested in it. He might not find a match yet, but at least he's interested in. And then we did a lot of outreach. We tried to find those 27 people. So what we did, that's I guess where the design side comes in. How do you engage people who, there are workshops galore. There is a lot of sort of practice communities. There's a lot of conferences already. How do you attract these people? And what we tried and what in the end worked was basically one of the directors had a big old sort of Ford motorhome or RV, and we pulled up in front of the different care homes and things, and just basically gave. That's the intent behind. Gave people a safe space to open up and see, hey, what are the problems? Do you think there are? And let's have a chat about this. So. There is, it all looks nice and funky, but there's also a bit of a serious side that we try to change here, and that is when you look at sort of social policy, how that's made, is often very much top down. It's a policy is made somewhere, and then you try to work the programs around it, and then eventually you see like evaluations on that, you see what actually works for people, and then you go back again. This is very much flipping it around, and I guess the design aspect really comes interactions, where, of course, I think Jack's mentioned it with her work, you really play around with the interaction. You start, where do people want to get, and what interactions can get them there. So really, there's not just one arrow. It's a bit simplified. There are usually a lot, and as Jack said as well, it's a messy space to be, but it's also quite fun when it works. Social design, for us, it's basically the blending of the two, the social sciences and the design sciences. So you have the team formation and pain points, and that's where the social sciences come in. Really unravel what are people's true motivations and pain points. Someone might say, oh, I like a job, but then when you spend time with them, you can really understand how does that fit in the bigger picture. Ethnography is a way to get really rich meaning out, not just have a profile of a person or sort of statistical age or work occupancy, but different kind of, and then visualization, prototyping. With the teams mentioned, we formed them around different problems, and then basically go out to first with other team members as a way to get to know each other. Some of people work in different organizations, didn't even know each other, and then hopefully that way train up to go out and observe clients and other people. So I'm just going to show you a little video about ethnography, because I think it's one of those terms that gets thrown around, and I'd love to have a bit of a chat and a discussion. I think where it gets interesting is when you look at different ways of doing ethnography. So I'm just going to play this little video about Wendy and Sherry, two disability frontline workers.
My friend just sent me a Craigslist ad for 230 square feet to rent for $975 a month. Like, it's right? Yeah. So that alone is more than some of these PWDs. So if we're talking about people with disabilities. Yeah. But we're talking about me, it's more than I pay right now, and it's a fourth of the, quarter of the space that I have.
But see, that's why I find that great, in that then let's do crazy things. Let's go over and talk to developers.
I feel like I'm not jumping on board as much, or I'm not getting the concepts as well as I should be, and so that's causing me some frustration. Because when I think about some of the other problems around the room, I'm like, oh, we could try that.
You're thinking about things we could try. And
I can't think of anything for this problem.
And all weekend I was thinking about it. I thought, you know what, I don't know if we're going to be able to tackle affordable, but let's talk about creative options.
I feel like everything else we can help them solve.
Yeah.
Whereas affordability is really difficult.
But is there, but then is it about different kinds of roommate situations or different forms of...
I think what the problem is once you move, there's no going back here. That place is gone. That's what's happening right now.
Okay, so you can't go back.
You can't go back. And that's
so that
it
is the most interesting problem of all. But you
nailed it. We put a star beside
it. But you nailed it, right?
The first ethnography that we did was a practice ethnography, really, and it was on our teammates, and so I did mine with Wendy. And she, at the same time, basically did one with me. An ethnography, as far as I can tell so far, is going to meet with people or a group of people and finding out as much as you can about them just by sharing their space and sharing their experience. It definitely went a little more discussion focused than just purely observing, but I definitely felt like seeing her home, like her home is certainly a reflection of who she is.
So what's your transition? The kids have left. We've made the decision we're going to keep the house, but we may try living elsewhere.
We were interested in transition, informed decision making around transition, and that could be living alone or not living alone. All of those things.
You're comfortable on the road. You're a comfortable driver.
Yeah.
I've noticed you're totally relaxed.
We will be at my house at some point before the end of our project.
No worries, and if you don't, that's fine too.
But my building that I live in is right there, those tall ones.
Oh, okay.
And I get the farthest one at the back.
Okay. This is your other home. In her office, she's really home there too. When she walked in there, it was, you could tell that she felt very comfortable, and she had a few pictures, and a very good relationship with the people that she worked with. And the one place, and she did open to that, is that was missing was her home, and that might be a really important part, is because she has to be so open and on all day for a lot of people that maybe she needs a place that's private and that she can relax and retreat to.
I don't know if we did a true ethnography that day. If nothing else, really, it's opened up a space for Wendy and I to be able to work together.
It was really about honesty and really getting to know the sort of minute details of people's lives, and also too, I mean, if we really want to know people, we have to open ourselves up.
Yeah. So really, if you use design in with people who never really experienced that, I guess there's the expert layman or laywoman's barrier as well. So I think ethnography is really a way. Obviously, it gives you a much richer picture, but it's also this building trust and getting to know people, and so that you then can open up and have deeper conversations. So I'm just gonna go on from Wendy and Sherry.
Well, we've just finished our second ethnography, and it's really interesting. I didn't realize how much information you can get by just being quiet and observing and getting to know someone in their own context within their home where they're comfortable, and when there's a lull in dialogue, you can engage the person with a photograph or a calendar.
Sorry, we're terrible.
Sorry
yeah,
about that.
play.
All right. Maybe again back.
Sorry.
Sorry about that a little bit. Yes. So and again, just one way to do this. You know it. The really making and visualizing things. In the disability sector, there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of talking, and really bringing people to, if you say a day program, you know what it looks like with Lego, for example, you can really put out the minute details of everything, and day program is not just a day program, it's not just a day program, it can be so many features, and with something like Lego, you can play it out really quickly and show the features that you like and that you don't like about the day program, say. And then finally, putting all these methods together from the two sciences into actually building those interactions. And one of we call like proto interactions, because the whole idea is you try out different interactions, you tweak them, and until you land one that you sort of say, yes, that's almost like informal jams like designers would do in podcasts. And these guys also got nominated for the very prestigious, the Fail Forward Award. You see the little green thing there. And so because really the main thing about this whole fifth space, the solutions are nice, but we really wanted to get a culture like designers would know is about learning from every step they didn't learn. At least you tick that off, a bit like Thomas Edison said already. At least you know now what doesn't work, so you get closer and closer and closer to what works, although you might never really know what exactly works. So yeah, just two things I thought to draw out from what Jax sort of gave me as a brief for discussion. The first, when social services and service design meet, I just thought I'd give you two quick stories to have a discussion around. So the first one is Dean and Manu. So Dean is a supervisor, so he manages a few group homes. And basically his big thing is always, you see there in the bottom, rostering. So it's a bit like a fast food restaurant where people don't really rock up. And there are lots of, what's the technique? Basically people switch jobs all the time. There are lots of casual staff. It's a heck of a job. And he's been part of the fifth space. And what I guess the big question is really whether you like the solutions or whether you like actually a change of working. So, in the fifth space, he was really good. Like, he was quick at coming up with new ideas. There just quickly on paper. He says, put up a little screenshot of a new app that he could do. But when it comes back to working in the system, he that switch didn't really quite make. So the question is, I guess, do we create kind of design safe spaces for people where they can go on a weekend hack or whatever? And then come back Monday morning and it's the same system, the same attitudes around them. What we've seen is that, if you want to do really a systems change, probably those sort of off-site kind of things don't work so well. You really have to start where people are at, and whether it's the Monday morning rostering. For Manu, the same thing. She worked sort of in the health sector with a big clinic in the States. They're really trying to push sort of service design thinking into the health, into the healthcare. And there she designed like a room for basically sexual assault victims. But really, when it comes down to I'm finished now. When it comes down to the nitty-gritty, there you see the signing experience for a workshop. So really thinking these really small interactions that happen when an event, for example, happens, how can you make them different? She makes choices there for different people, so that they get a better mood for the conference. And then the other one is around Frankie and Jonas. Frankie is a manager, Jonas is a service designer. Is around, I put this as well for you for designers, is whether it's about delivering blueprints, delivering ideas, delivering fancy things, or whether it's actually about this more nitty-gritty stuff around improving small little interactions. So, for example, there's the Jonas on the bottom there moving around and just giving people lots of different tools and then helping them and building up their capability to select tools. So not just say, this is the tool you have to use, but actually which one do you want to use? Do you want to project things? Do you want to observe things? Those sorts of things. So yeah, that's it. Done. Thank you. Any questions?